Well, I wasn't able to do this all in one day like I had initially planned. But that's probably for the better. You see, I had just finished watching the episode that you guys are about to see now, when Meg came home. And, you know, I wasn't going to tell her, I wanted to keep this a surprise, but considering the episode itself, a lot of things happened in it. She could tell I was troubled, and I ended up talking to her about it, so she's aware of the lost episodes. And she is fine with it. I think she was just more concerned about me because, you know. We'll get more into it after you guys see this episode. I'm just going to warn you now. It's going to be a long one. And the subject matter in this fanfiction that Meg and I will be talking about, because this is the episode that I had used the bloody face pistol for the last time. The fanfic is called, well, it's officially called Rectified Anatomy, but some people might know it more famously as a Pokemon story. So viewer discretion is advised. I will see you at the end after the episode itself is done. So, see you in a bit. Hello, I'm the FanFic Critic. I read you listen. It's another Pokemon fanfic called A Pokemon Story. Sounds innocent, but it's certainly not innocent. Susan is accompanying me tonight. She is got the face pistol and everything, and will take over if necessary, because something tells me this fanfic... None of my Pokemon will come out of their Pokeballs. Not even Kipper here, and not even Draco. Even they are afraid of this story. You don't have to do this. I can always do it for you. It's okay, Susan. I can handle it. I can handle it. I got my beer. If you have to, you can grab me another one if I need it, because something tells me I will definitely need it. This is posted on the Topless Robot website. The person who posted the story is Rob Bricken, but he's not the actual author. I'm not even going to say who the actual author is. A, because I'm too lazy to look it up, and B, I don't think they deserve to be named. Okay then. And besides, it says here what the actual author is anyway, so if you guys want to read the text before the story, you can go ahead. So let's not waste any time. Rain splattered, or rain spattered, across the sand, causing a deafening roar, like that of 100 semis crashing into each other in apocalyptic glory. The crack of thunder split instantly, and wind swept up into the cacophony of natural horror. All the while David sat glumly. Wait a minute. The main character is named David, and the author of this actual story is named David. And I guess the real title of this story is called Rectified Anatomy. Okay then, so this is a self-insert. How charming. All the while David sat glumly, shielding himself from the gale beneath a rather large tree. He was soaked to the bone and miserable, lost in Kanto, lost with no map, no Pokedex, no food, and no company other than his beloved Pokemon. He was sure he'd die of hypothermia or worse. David sighed, clinging tightly to his umbrella, which proved of little worth except for some sort of moral booster. His soaked blonde hair clung tightly to his body. With an absent hand, he fondled the Pokeballs on his lap. He clicked the switch on the front, releasing Gardevoir to stand beside him. "Garde?" She whispered to him soothingly. "No, I'm fine, Gardevoir. I just want some to be with," he replied, barely audible to the young Pokemon above the ripping winds. A shallow tear formed on the rim of his red eyes, but was blotted out by the rest of the water that coagulated on everything within sight. She patted his shoulder. She was so cute, even for a Pokemon. Her thin hips swayed, her plant-like hair messed by the storm. No, what are you doing?" he thought. "She's an animal." But yet she was so much like a human, only smaller, and covered in fauna. Plus there was no one around for miles, and no amount of masturbating could satiate the lust he felt out of the wilderness. If only he could feel the flesh of a woman against his. He put a loving arm around his Gardevoir, pulling her close and whispered, "Gardevoir, you know that I'm your trainer, right? Your master?" "Guard," she nodded in agreement. He nodded in return. "And would you do anything for me?" "Garde," she nodded again. He moved another hand to her, sliding it over her wasp waist and looking carefully into her eyes. She seemed to begin to understand. A look of fear welled in her eyes. Oh, God. David could feel a lump in his pants swell as he began to force her upon the ground, the soaked ground. The sky rumbled with thunder all around them. The tree above them creaked threateningly. The best thing about Pokemon is that they'll never be able to tell anyone about it. The rest continues after the jump, and you have no one to blame but yourself. Actually, dude, I can blame whoever requested this story to me. You gonna be okay? In a flash, his pants were off, and he was atop her. She squealed and struggled, afraid to fight back because he was indeed her trainer. Her mind had a block in it, via years of training. Years of believing he'd never harm her, that he was her best friend. He ran a hand over her leafy posterior. A probing finger slipped in between, finding a hole. He knew little of the Gardevoir anatomy, but knew that any hole would work. He plunged his rock-hard cock deep inside of her anus. It was white hot. A wave of pleasure washed over him before the first stroke. Gardevoir screamed in pain, her precious anus being pulled to 4 times its natural size. With each thrust she screamed louder, but David couldn't hear it. The crevices formed tightly around his shaft, gripping harder than his fist ever could. Before long he finally came, filling her spinster with his seed. White mixed with black blood as he pulled out. Blood and feces dribbled out. The sight of Gardevoir laying there, whimpering, smeared with mud, blood, cum, and her own feces unlocked something deep within David's soul. His heart soared at the sight. It felt so good. It was like he finally discovered his place in the world. While his spirit had become free, however, his mind quivered under the weight of his actions, struggling to block these memories from existence, enabling his attack. His mouth lowered in primal instinct, extending his pink tongue. He lapped up her blood and shit, using pruned fingers to smother himself. It was beautiful. The bitter taste of her poop and the coppery taste of her blood was like magic to him. "God, she moaned, hands digging into the dirt. She wept. How could she do this to him? Pain was splitting her because of him. He said he'd never hurt her, though. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe this was fine. He flipped her bleeding, limp body over. His mouth met hers, lashing about inside her toothed maw. He kissed hard and deep as he carefully fit his shitty dick into her poke vagina. Don't use poke vagina, you fucking immature creep. His head slid in easily and she whimpered. With a deft hand, he massaged her clitoris. She tried to pull back to cry out, but he pushed into her harder. She screamed into his mouth. The vibration filled him with ecstasy. He violently penetrated her, and wave after wave of pleasure engulfed them both. This was beyond the realm of human understanding. Collapsing universes whirled around them, being born and dying in an eternal idiot firestorm. As he came again, he thrust harder, forcing as much of himself as he could. His penis crashed into her cervix, and she let out a blood-curdling scream, clawed hands digging into his flesh. David didn't like that at all. No, she wasn't allowed to injure him. So it's perfectly fine for you to mutilate her, but she can't injure you? He drove his bleaching fist into her mouth. There was a crunch, and black syrup welled up in her mouth and eyes. She gurgled, and he smiled gleefully. Disengaged from her mangled secret, he crawled up to her face. Lifting her broken head, he plunged his dick into her wounded mouth. You alright? I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Gardevoir could take no more. She gave himself over to... Don't you mean herself? He was her master. She would please him any way she could and never make another whimper in reply. She sucked on his piece as he pulled it in and out. Cracked lips smothered him, teasing glands and glands. He gripped her arms, squeezing tighter. More pain roared through her, and she sucked harder. She gagged, puking a little. The bite stung him, so he drove another fist into her eye. Through the pain, she sucked away, and finally he came. As he did, his mind cracked a little more. He gripped her head, forcing his cock into the back of her throat. She vomited again, squirting half-digest plant matter all over the both of them, and he lashed her. Her tiny bones splintered under his blows as he came harder at her destruction. Maybe I should take over. I'll be okay. Weeks later, David finally found himself at Cerulean City. Gardevoir wasn't looking very good. She didn't respond to vocal stimuli and couldn't see out of the eye he caved in, but he felt no remorse for it. Even so, he felt glad. She was mentally broken. You, my dear friend, are a sick piece of fucking shit. First of all, you are trying to glorify rape. You're making it seem like it's okay, that the woman has to give in to you because the man has all the power over the woman. Well, guess what? It doesn't work like that. Secondly, this is fucking bestiality. Pokemon are the equivalent of animals. I don't care if they look human-like. That would be like saying, oh, well, I'm going to go fuck a monkey because a monkey kind of looks like a human. No, 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 no. You sick, psychotic piece of crap. You deserve to have the rap of this blade across your... Damage them, did I? No. I really do not want to do that, but... Okay then. Thankfully, she highlighted where she left off. Okay then. His attack had transformed her into the perfect sex slave. When he moved his cock near her, she would tilt her head, trying to find it, just as a baby searches for a nipple, and automatically begins suckling. Part of me is kind of regretting knocking her out now. She was infected, though. Mold grew upon her anus and wounded eye. Her vagina was yellow with infection, discharging constantly. She wouldn't make it another day. David rushed to the Pokemon Center, got her in his arms. He came up to the reception desk, and there was Nurse Joy. Her eyes first went Dave's dumb, smiling face. Shouldn't I say her eyes went to his dumb, smiling face first? But then down to the Pokemon in his arms, and she gasped. What happened? She said. Don't you mean she asked? If there's a question mark, you have the word asked. Stroking Gardeva's hair with the gentleness of a mother. I'm not exactly sure, he muttered coldly. I found her like this out in the forest. Tears formed in Joy's eyes as she scooped the poor Pokemon up, taking her over to the rejuvenation chamber for dying Pokemon in another room. After flipping the switch, the chamber filled with gases, obscuring outside eyes. Joy didn't mind that David had followed her and closed the door. She was too busy studying the complicated-looking readout now appearing on the computer screen. She bent over low as she typed slowly. A complete novice with computers, it appears. And as she did, her skirt teased her thick ass. Her thigh highs squeezed her legs delightfully. She was a delicious woman, and David would have no problem finding out just how delicious she was. Wow. This story's gonna go there. It really is. I'm appalled. I really am. He slid up next to her. How does it look, nurse? He asked, putting a hand on her shoulder. Not very good. I'm afraid the rejuvenation chamber won't be enough for... Not the Pokemon, your cunt. At this, the nurse spun around. A hurt look flashed across her face and she bit her lip. She was exactly sure how to handle the situation. It was true that she was constantly horny. She never had time for anything outside of the hospital. Her cunt tingled at the prospect of being split. I know she already drank from this, but I don't care. We're practically sisters anyway. She eyed the door. Should she run? Should she have sex with this complete stranger? He seems dangerous, she thought. But as she did, her thighs pressed against themselves, pinching her slowly enlarged clitoris. David's hands began to unbutton her blouse, revealing a polka-dotted bra clasped two melon-sized breasts. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step out of the office, she said with as much courage as she could muster. But didn't stop him. She didn't say it didn't stop him. He pushed her up against the computer terminal and mouthed her nipples. She gasped as he bit one, teasing it with his tongue. He sucked on it and she lurched, not noticing her hands slide down to his hips. He lifted her and placed her upon the desk. Her legs spread and she leaned back, forgetting that she was on the rag. I think I have enough to continue to read. Don't worry. She's still on the floor over there sleeping like a little baby. Okay, where was I? Oh, yes. And gave herself to him. He lowered himself to one knee, ripping off her clashing blue underwear and exposing her rosy, drippy hole. Okay then, he gently tugged
on the string hang out, drawing a blood-soaked tampon out. Ew, that's disgusting. That's just nasty. Why would you want to have sex with a lady when she's on her bloody period? It fell to the floor and thick chunks began to seep out. Oh, that's nasty. She burned for him, for this complete stranger who has absolutely no problem raping Pokemon and women. This story is so fucking stupid, it's not even funny. And yet I'm laughing, but that's only because I'm drunk. I can assure you that if I was sober, I would not be laughing. Not at all. Oh, where was I? Oh. His fingers moved into her, rubbing the rough spot just inside the warm tunnel. Oh, they forgot to capitalize the H in his. His red tongue slathered her clit. He sucked on it and hummed. A dizzy, buzzy feeling filled her head as she began buckling, screaming in pleasure. Soon her screams of pleasure became those of pain as he forced 3 pink fingers into her tight pussy. It's Mrs. Lovett's lesson all over again. She hadn't been with a man in so long. No, please, she gasped as her vagina slowly spread and grew used to the probing digits. He inserted another finger and she gasped. This time her cunt burned in protest, showing no signs of widening. She squeaked. He forced another finger in, and soon he was fisting her, plunging his large, manly hands in as far as they would go, spreading her wider, filling her. More, she growled through clenched teeth, thick streams of saliva running down her cheeks. Fuck me harder, you piece of shit. What's with this lady? This little boy comes in and tries to molest you and you allow it. You know, you're giving women a bad name. Hey girls, if someone tries to molest you, just give in because they are allowed to because they're a man and they have a penis, and you're supposed to give in because you have a vagina. No, no, no. Bloody sexist twat. Simply awful. And I read right before she started the review the thing that the person who posted this said, not the actual author, but the person who posted on the website. He said that this fanfic was written in complete and utter seriousness, which is really sad and pathetic. This person has a Pokemon fetish and they think that it's perfectly fine to go and rape women and animals. Okay then, let's continue to read. David didn't like this, however, and punched her in the gut. Oh, and it also encourages, if you don't like it if someone protests to you, you punch them because it's not their place to protest or resist. So, let's see, you're a rapist, you're a molester, you fuck animals, and you're an abuser. Congratulations! You are a grade A asshole! She lurched forward and gasped, but then, weighing how much fun he was having being told what to do, he decided to insert his next fist. What? Her tendons popped and squeaked as he forced the other one inside slowly. Her cleft opened wider and wider still. She screamed in pain and pleasure until her throat bled almost as much as her cunt. This story is bloody revolting. Blood streamed down his arms, mixing with her cum until his shirt and floor was soaked. There was a knock on the door, followed by the turning of a handle. In strode the doctor the nurse had called for earlier, her father. Oh, this is going to be atrocious, I can tell. He stopped, shocked at the situation that had unfolded in front of him. What are you? What are you doing to my little girl? He murmured. Shut the fuck up, you old bastard, and get the fuck over here. Her mouth isn't gonna fuck itself. David shouted, forcing his voice above that of Nurse Joy. She was horrified that her father had walked in on this, horrified at all the blood and what she had been coerced to do. But she didn't stop. Oh, you bloody sick fuck. Lust raged inside of her, overtaking all other motor functions. Fuck me, daddy, she said. I need to have another 10 drinks. I think I can get through the rest of this fanfic. Okay, so where'd I leave all? Fuck me, Darcy, she said, grinning a plotty smile. Oh, I wonder if this gent's British, seeing he said plotty, but then again she says plotty too, but that's because she's been living with me for God knows how long. Her pleading eyes met his, and before she knew it, her father's wrinkly, liver-spotted dick was in her mouth. Oh my God, this is so fucking bloody. Ugh, that's nasty. I don't need that visual. My word, she's still unconscious. Oh well. More booze for me. The doctor fucked her from the opposite side of the table. Her young tongue slid over the top of his dick, teasing the helmet. The helmet! He buckled wildly shakily. He had not had sex since his wife had died 10 years ago, and sometimes had dreams about his daughter. He tried to ignore them, pushed them in the back of his mind, but he could never help his sick fantasy. Sometimes he'd accidentally walk in on her dressing or showering, and think about it. Later that night, he choked himself and petted his shivering member. David began to grow bored. His maniacal, slowly splintering mind needed more horror to satisfy it. It was a curse, but one he enjoyed. He drew one hand out of her weeping puss, much to a protest. With the other he gripped her cervix and twisted. Ouch. Pain cut her, and she clenched her teeth and moaned, cleanly chopping her father's dick off as he came. I don't think someone's teeth are capable of well, maybe, I don't know. The doctor fell backwards and the nurse sat up straight. Her vision blurred from the pain, but she was just barely able to see what David was doing. He had drawn a knife out of his pocket and began to drive it into his urethra. I think I need to... Ugh. What the bloody hell happened? Oh, I was reading that... What? Oh God, I got into the booze again. Damn it. Oh, why is she still unconscious? Well, she's still breathing at least. I only shot her once, right? I hope I shot her once. Ugh, and this fanfic is still going on. Oh, alright, I guess we have to continue it. Looks like whatever I was drinking, I still have a little bit left, so let's continue. His cock opened wide and he screamed, but kept pushing hard, down to his ballsack. Hold on, I need to reread the rest of the... Okay, never mind, I don't think I need to read what happened before. Oh my word. Blood gushed forward and he puked, bile adding to the horrendous pain, but he couldn't stop. Slowly memories of him and Gardevoir flooded back, all the fun they had back home. Memories of his mother and father, how they wanted him to succeed. They wanted him to come home, to spend time with the baby boy. Of his first love, the girl he never got over. Her name was Misty. She wanted to see him again. She had sent him a letter only a month earlier saying that she wanted to be with him again, that nothing felt the same without him. What was he doing here? He couldn't stop his hands. They moved on their own, twisting out Joy's cervix bit by bit, slitting his genitals. At last, the leathery bag was open. They dripped his testicles and pried them out, forcing them into his mouth. All three parties bled to death. It was in the news the next day. The Gardevoir recovered, but was forever in a tortured state of slavery. Misty shook as she read it. She wept and her mind grew jaded and hateful. She was alone in the world now. Nobody she loved. Nothing alone. Oh, no. No! No! She drew a Pokeball from... No! No. Actually, no. I'm not going to drink that because I don't want to go into a drunk stupor again. Okay, let's read this calmly and then we shall finish the episode and then I can check on my friend and make sure that she's not hurt. Okay. She drew a Pokeball from her belt and opened it. Staryu appeared next to her. Staryu, she blushed and looked at him through teary eyes. Would you do anything for me? Star, he echoed. Her gun burned. She needed it. Then. I take it back. I need to drink the rest of this. This story... Oh, bad idea. Ugh. This story is a monstrosity. It never should have been written, and the fact that this was written in all seriousness is highly disturbing. Let's read what the person who posted this story had to say. I guess this person on this website normally rips into the fanfic and makes jokes, but even he was horrified from it. He says, "You asked for it. When you're done reading it and you realize that everything you thought was potentially good in life was a lie, please remember this is your own fault." How is it my fault? How is it her fault? I'm not the one who requested this fanfic. I didn't want to read this fanfic. She didn't want to review this fanfic. She didn't want it sent her way. Some idiot sent it her way. So how is it our faults? If you want to blame the other people who willingly read this fanfic, go right ahead. But don't blame us. And don't blame us for the author writing this either. You bastards are the ones who begged and demanded me to run this. Well then yes, you can blame the people who demanded it. It's like how I like to blame you viewers of my cousin who like to insist that she read these god-awful fanfics. I didn't want to. You made me. In fact, the story is so horrible that I'm not even going to comment on it. Because that would require me to reread it. You get it complete and unadulterated by my comedy. And when you try and pick up the pieces of your ruined weekend and shattered life, the story is called Rectified Anatomy, and the author is by David Garrett. One final warning. If last week's story of Luke and Leah and Han pooping and fucking and killing themselves made you all uncomfortable, do not read this. I'm utterly serious. This is qualifiably 100 times worse because it was written in utter seriousness. Utter seriousness. You have got to be bloody kidding me. This fanfic was going to cause her to explode with anger. It caused me to drink into a drunk stupor on several occasions. Who knows how long I was out? I mean, let's look at how long the camera's been. Oh, bollocks. And you forced me to use the face pistol on her. I shouldn't have used it. I didn't want to risk it. I wasn't sure what she was going to do. But I digress. I'm Susan. She's the FanFic Critic. And I need to get you to a hospital. And probably myself too, with all the alcohol I've consumed.
I think this episode was not only the last time I ever used the face pistol on Meg, this was the episode in question that gave Meg the idea to retire. There's obviously one more episode, one more lost episode, which is episode 220, and I think after that episode was when her laptop had crapped out, and she took that as a sign to just retire from doing the web series. Of course, we know now that the laptop didn't fully crap out because we did manage to get it to work a couple of years ago, and I managed to get stuff off of it to put on an external hard drive, and hence why we're seeing this all today. But yes, lot to say. We might as well talk about the story itself first. I think both Meg and I made it very clear that this was a very disturbing story. But now, me, years later, with a more mature mind, I would like to think, I honestly find it disturbing that people probably do get a kick out of stories like this. It's, you know, it's rape. It's disgusting rape. And I think the person who wrote it originally, they were trying to say that they took it seriously. It's like, no, I think you were just... I really hope you weren't taking it seriously, because if you were, you really need to get help, and you shouldn't have pets, and you shouldn't even have a lover. Let's be frank, if, you know, if you're writing a fanfic about raping an animal and then, you know, being derogatory towards a woman, then yes, you should be single, not have pets, and just live a miserable life by yourself. You know, write your disgusting fanfics if that's what gets you off, but aside from that, stay away from people, because you're disgusting. So yes, the story was really bad. Neither of us, I don't think either of us made any mention about, oh, I don't know, there might have been some typos, I don't know, because it was hard watching that, and then I was getting distracted by how ridiculous I was in this bloody... Yes, we might as well address that. My memories of this are fuzzy. Obviously not of, you know, me finding out that Meg was unconscious for hours on the floor. That bit I definitely remember, but I did not realise I had drank to this excess. And it was very excessive. We don't drink... Well, we do still drink alcohol, but not to the extent that we did when we were younger, thankfully. And, this is the reason why, like... I don't even think I can handle it now, to be honest, because... Yes, because it was... So yes, I'm very angry at my younger self for this episode. You know, not just for getting bloody stupid drunk, but then even after I sobered up and realised that she was still unconscious, I still went on with the review. It's like, no. The hell with the review. Get Meg to the hospital, not leave her on the ground. And I should have moved her to a more comfortable spot instead of just having her lie on the floor. I digress, though. Now, yes, very angry with my younger self. There's many a times I wanted to jump through the computer and just give her a good whack off the side of the head. And then the whole embarrassing thing that I was wearing my shirt inside out. That was embarrassing. I'm surprised that neither... Well, in Meg's defense, she was so rattled by that story, even before doing the review. I do remember stuff leading up to that she was very rattled by it. Because it was, again, one of these stories that she was being harassed to do, kind of like with Sweet Apple Massacre and whatnot. So she was nervous about it, and, you know, she trusted me enough to have me sitting by with the face pistol, where, you know, back then she was, you know, she did kind of seem iffy about it, but she was putting on a brave face about it. I think now, though, no. I think she was, you know, trying to put on a show that it didn't bother her as much as it really was. But, you know, the fact that she was willing to have me shoot her with it. And again, another reason why I'm angry with myself is that I shouldn't have. I should have, you know... Even though I didn't really know too much about the Vulcan pinch back then, I still should have at least somewhat attempted it. Well, I digress. I mean... You know, this was definitely the episode that caused me to get rid of the face pistol permanently, because it turned out that she had gone into a coma, and that's why she didn't wake up. I mean, she did eventually wake up, but that was when we discovered that damage was done by when I had done what I had done. Which I'm sure Meg actually was aware of it, but just didn't want to tell me, because, you know, obviously... I had to ask her years later if she actually recovered from it fully, and she admitted that she didn't, so I'm sure back then she knew that she hadn't, but, you know. And I don't fault her for not wanting to tell me, because I know that she knew that I felt bad about it. She probably didn't want me to feel worse, but I don't know if anything could have been done. Probably not. But, yeah. So this was definitely what cemented me with getting rid of the bloody face pistol. Well, that's enough rambling. Thank you all for watching today's episode of the Lost Episodes of FanFic Critic. If you liked today's episode, please be sure to leave a like and leave a comment. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I'd greatly appreciate it. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, cheerio.